Hi all. Let's talk about our next outfit here. All right, so here we go. I'm going to dress this woman in a lovely yellow dress. And so yeah, let's do it. So the first thing that we're going to notice should feel a little familiar. We'll look at this upper torso of the dress, and there's definitely some same things happening. We're beginning this dress shape with our familiar diaper fold coming off of the suspension points of each shoulder. But one thing that's distinct with this body is because there's more fullness through the region of the mammary or the breast, that is kind of filling out the volume of the fabric. As we come down, we see our sort of more vertical course of our folds interrupted by the sort of filling of the volume of the fabric through the breast. And so then instead, what I've added is a horizontal tension fold to show kind of that new direct, to suggest the fullness of the fabric through that region of the body and to suggest the shape of the body underneath. As we come down, we'll look at the waistband. And I'm also going to add the sleeves here because we're going to see a similar kind of fold happening on each one. So what we're looking at here, what I've drawn, is a pipe fold. And this is the kind of fold that you'd encounter in a dress. This would be kind of a light flowy material with a good amount of volume of fabric. The sleeves and the bodice really aren't that tight to the body, but at a certain point I wanted to suggest that, you know, the dress style or the seamstress had decided to kind of cinch and structure the form a little bit and pull the volume of the material back towards the body itself with a tighter cuff at the end of the sleeve and a distinct structured waistband at the waist. So, you know, if you're making this kind of dress, what you would be doing with the material is you'd actually sort of pinch some of the volume together and then tack it into a fold that you're actually setting with a stitch. Does that make sense? So it's not just the body suspension point that's creating that single point of tension. You've actually sewn, you know, sewn a fold into the fabric itself. And so when that happens, you do get a source of tension, but this time it'll be at the end. It kind of stops that free-flowing vertical pull of gravity on the fabric and the fold, and you'll see the tightest point of what's called a pipe fold at the point of that stitch right at the waistband or right at the cuff. But then as you know, as we move up above that stitch, the fabric, which is the fold sewn in place, releases, and you can see the edges of the fold widen and the fabric sort of ultimately flatten as it moves up away from that tension created at that little stitched pipe fold. So you can see the fold sort of disappear ultimately as they move up to the center of the arm or through the kind of upper center of the torso. As we start laying in the folds of the skirt, you're dealing with a pipe fold again. There'd be a stitch or a set fold that starts the course of this drapery, and that's defined and structured by the waistband. But this is a good time also to talk about the general kind of anatomy of a fold. Folds are always made of 3 planes. If you didn't have all 3 planes, you wouldn't have a fold with any volume. You would still have a flat piece of fabric. So the 3 planes that you're really looking for in every fold that you're seeing is you're seeing an ascending plane, a top plane, and a descending plane. Sometimes you can see all of them kind of facing you. Sometimes the descending plane is going to recede back under the top plane, which is actually how I am showing it here. So what you want to do is you want to, when you're drawing, observe and describe as much about each fold as you possibly can, because that's going to allow you to suggest more volume in the folds that you're describing. So I start with kind of the major folds that I see clearly. But I'll look at things like light and value shifts, different sort of edges of the fabric that seem to overlap each other, and add those intermediate planes that define the volume of the folds as a secondary step. After, I highly recommend directional hatching as a mark making strategy to define your the volume of your folds, because if you are working with marks that move across each plane, then you can really distinctly change the direction of each mark to suggest the new direction of each fold, which in turn will be more effective in suggesting the position of the body underneath the fabric that you've described as well, and implying movement.